Production of Kansas City Week in Review is made possible through the generous support of Dave and Jamie Cummings, Smithfield Foods, Haas and Wilkerson Insurance, and by viewers like you. Thank you.
Coming up on Week in Review, no more Girl Scout cookies in the Kansas Archdiocese. A nearly $20 million settlement revealed in the Schlitterbahn tragedy. Celebrating the first birthday of the streetcar. Legislative sessions gliding to an end in Kansas and Missouri. What have your lawmakers done for you lately? A report card. And Yoda, a voter on Trump health plan. We take a closer look at the bill's implications here. Hello and welcome, I'm Nick Haynes, on a mission over the next half hour to connect the dots on the news of the week, rolling up their sleeves to dissect those top headlines. The Star's chief political reporter, Brian Lowry. From the world of television news, investigative reporter Stacey Cameron. From the editorial pages of your Kansas City Star, Dave Helling. And Mr. Up-to-Date on KCUR-FM, Steve Kraske. Some people get ticked off by why so little gets done in the corridors of power in this country. And the same goes for what happens in the chambers of our state legislatures. So frustrated by the lack of progress, lawmakers in Missouri who have been barely talking to one another are now singing Kumbaya, literally.
We all need to be singing out of the same songbook.
How about it? Kumbaya, my Lord.
Kumbaya, Kumbaya, my Lord. Kumbaya.
All right, just looking at the reaction of other lawmakers, they seem a cross between looking totally bored, awkward, or angry. Or is that how lawmakers in Jefferson City always look, Brian?
I think they're just a little stir-crazy at this point, particularly in the Senate, where there's been so much gridlock. And this is that time in the session where things get wacky. We've got one more week left in Missouri. Missouri, unlike Kansas, actually has light at the end of the tunnel right now. So, but there's still a lot to do, and I think at this point, that's just kind of it's an expression of, I guess, where they're at right now and how we can't agree on anything, but let's just sing Kumbaya.
Okay, Steve, let's just all do it together. Come on, group hug, and let's sing Kumbaya around this table.
Row the boat ashore.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's what we can do. But what have your lawmakers done for you lately, other than making Missouri a right-to-work state, signed into law by Governor Greitens 3 months ago now? What have lawmakers actually achieved this session? Their biggest accomplishment, Steve?
Well, they have struggled, Nick, but the biggest accomplishment, I think, is going to be that $45 million they threw into the pot for K-12 education. They fully funded the education formula. The first time in state history. The caveat here is that a year ago, they lowered what it means to be fully funded. Nonetheless, it's fully funded. It's an accomplishment.
Dave?
Yeah, I think that's right. I think some of the things that we'll remember this legislature for are the things they did not accomplish. It looks like, for example, the legislature will not limit the ability of cities to raise the minimum wage. It looks like Kansas City's minimum wage may go up. The St. Louis minimum wage went up yesterday. So that's an accomplishment, sort of a backward accomplishment. But they haven't dealt with Real ID. That's the problem with your driver's license and being able to get on airplanes. They haven't done ethics reform. They haven't done a prescription drug monitoring program bill. I mean, there are a lot of things.
Okay, you're doing a great job of listing all the failures here, Dave.
Yes. And passing a budget, I think, would be one thing that they would point to as a success, and then right to work.
They've been there since January. What other accomplishments have they had? Could you list one, Stacey?
No, to be quite frank, but I think I would agree with Steve that education is going to be the big one that they walk away with, adding that $45 million to the education. I think the longest impact, though, will be the right to work and what that is going to do to the labor force.
Brian, what did you tick off as the biggest accomplishment?
Well, education is definitely the biggest accomplishment, but to not just parrot what everyone else said, there was a development last night that actually Jason Hancock of the Star covered, which is they found a way to avoid the cuts to in-home care services. That has passed the Senate. It will go to the House. I mean, if they can avoid some deep cuts for services like that and fully fund education, they can maybe go home smiling. Universities, though, are going to see a bit of a cut.
Yes.
So, money has to come from somewhere.
Some context here, Nick. I think this session will be looked at as a massive missed opportunity here. This is the first session of a new governor, a new Republican governor, after 8 years of Democratic control. Typically, when that happens, the out party has a whole slew of issues it wants to pass with its new governor. That didn't happen this time. This is the time to do it. It's an off-election year. Republicans have missed a huge opportunity to do even more than they set out to do this year.
This session will also be remembered for extraordinarily personal exchanges between the governor and members of the Senate, the whole dark money thing from Eric Greitens, Ryan Silvey warring with Ron Richard. I mean, have you ever, it is very rare in Missouri for disputes to become so personal so publicly, and that's what we'll remember this
Within the same party.
Within the same party.
Controlling
That's what we're
Republican
going to
Party.
remember this session.
Well, while we're told lawmakers in Jefferson City aren't throwing money around and don't have a huge fondness for life in the big city, the legislature does vote to approve $48 million in funding for a new downtown campus for the UMKC Conservatory of Music and Dance. The only thing standing in the way of that new project is the signature of Governor Eric Greitens. Is there any reason to believe he would say hell no to this project?
Yes, there is actually a reason he might say no, because he wants to make a public point about spending, that the budget is in trouble, that we can't afford a dance studio, which was the criticism of it on the floor. However, there was a far bigger than veto-proof majority that passed the bill on the Senate side. The vote was also overwhelming in the House. The money is not coming out of this year's budget, and it's spaced out over many years. On the merits, it's likely he'll sign it if he wants to make a political point.
Stacey.
Right, and there's too much political capital he could possibly lose. You have to look at the private funding that came in Kansas City. This is highly popular in the corporate community here and in the donor community, so he would really start to tick off a lot of people. Plus, as mentioned, there's a huge veto-proof majority to that, so I don't think it's something he's going to waste capital
The
on.
Missouri governor is busy this week touring flood-ravaged areas of the state, and there are plenty of them, as Eric Greitens is seen shoveling sand and helping with cleanup. He's also slapped with a $1,000 fine for breaking the state ethics laws. Why? Well, the Missouri Ethics Commission issuing the fine because Greitens, while campaigning, failed to disclose that he used a donor list from the nonprofit he founded to help solicit donations. Remarkably, he'll only have to pay $100 of that as long as he doesn't violate any other ethics rules over the next 2 years. Now, we hear a lot about ethics issues in our state legislators, but if penalties for violating those rules is in effect just $100, aren't they just paper tigers that make no difference whatsoever? Brian.
Pretty much. I mean, it's how this isn't damaging to Greitens in a monetary sense. It's damaging to him in a PR sense. The fact that the Star and other outlets got to run the story saying he had been found in violation of the ethics law, that's his real penalty. As far as paying the fine, that's not really a penalty. I mean, I remember when I was covering the Kansas legislature, one of my favorite ethics things was a lawmaker had spent campaign funds on cowboy boots. Now, under the law, that would only be legal if he only used those cowboy boots in a campaign context. So if he ever put the cowboy boots on when he wasn't campaigning, it would actually be illegal. Never even got so much as a slap on the wrist, and it just kind of speaks to, these are laws that we have, but it's almost like if the referees aren't handing down stiff penalties, you can't really expect
You
the
say this
players
it doesn't have a financial consequence to Eric Greitens, but a PR one. But really, in the public imagination, how much does the public really care about these things? Newspapers and other media outlets make a big deal about these issues, but does the public, in all of the issues that they are having to look at, care too much about these, Stacey?
It's a little blip on the radar. The governor came in, and ethics was part of his campaign promise, and he's proposed legislation that would restrict gifts from lobbyists to lawmakers in Jefferson City. That's really going nowhere either. But this early in his tenure as governor, it won't have any effect on the long run. It does make him look as a bit of a hypocrite. It's sort of a knock at the knees early on, but in the long run, they'll have no effect.
Thinking, though, beyond just this individual violation, though, Greitens really has been plagued by transparency and ethics issues throughout his first few months in office. And this is the guy who ran on cleaning up Jefferson City, and here he is constantly facing ethics and transparency questions. Dave alluded to earlier, I think if you're going to pick the biggest failure of the session, it's that we're not going to see that lobbyist gift ban go into effect. And that's partially because lawmakers are looking at Eric Greitens and dark money and all of the ethical questions surrounding him and saying, you want me to say no to lunches with lobbyists? What about yourself?
Quickly, and I think that's the damage to Greitens over time, is not necessarily the $100 or even the immediate PR hit, but when, not if, but when Eric Greitens runs for president, the clips will surface. That he had a fine before the Ethics Commission, that he couldn't get ethics passed, that he had dark money campaigning against other Republicans. That's a long-term damage to him that the governor and the people around him don't apparently see.
You know, the point that people don't pay a lot of attention to ethics in Jeff City, I completely get, but this is, again, another huge missed opportunity, maybe a once-a-generation opportunity to clean up state government writ large in Jefferson City. The governor ran on this. It's not going to happen.
Okay.
It won't happen again for a long time.
Lots more to cover on this Week in Review. This week, by the way, a new national survey names Kansas one of the least fun states in the entire country. The audacity of WalletHub, which lists Kansas next to Alabama and last place Mississippi on its rankings of the funnest state in America. Have they not seen the new Kansas tourism ad? Brian Lowry, you've been reporting in some of the top cities in the state for some time now, in Wichita and Topeka. Surely WalletHub has it wrong.
How honest of an answer do you want me to give you?
Of course we want to be honest.
No, I mean, look, Kansas has some real gems. Lawrence has a great music scene. Manhattan, there's a lot to do there. Topeka nightlife, it's a bit,
Shaky.
you know, not much to choose from. That said, I always had fun covering the Kansas legislature when
Which I think they may have forgotten about in that WalletHub survey, because some of the best fun, of course, is happening under the Capitol Dome in Topeka, where lawmakers this week beginning their wrap-up session, taxes, the intricacies of school finance and Medicaid expansion, all competing for attention. Don't they qualify as fun, Steve Koreski?
Well, I don't know about that. If you're a lawmaker and you're looking at weeks and weeks of being stuck in that Capitol Dome when it's going to be so beautiful outside now. Listen, the first 3 months, first 2.5 months were almost like a little warm-up act here, Nick. Now the real work in Topeka begins. I've never seen a wrap-up session, is what they call these things, so loaded up with so many significant, major issues. I think the cautionary note here to citizens is be patient here. These are tough issues, intractable issues. You have a legislature now divided between Democrats, moderate Republicans, conservative Republicans. It's going to take a while for them to sort through all these tough issues.
But do they have time to do that, Brian? Because we have courts in Kansas, if you recall, that said they're going to shut down schools at the end of next month if they can't agree on the school finance piece of the puzzle.
Right, it's really difficult, but June 30th is the deadline, and so let's expect them to probably finish towards the end of June. This is not something they're going to wrap up this month in May. When you look at the list of what they need to do, there's still a close to $1 billion budget hole over a 2-year period that they need to fill. That's without even putting any extra money towards schools. There's real issues with taxes, and then there's all of these little things piling up. And so I think there's going to be a lot of horse trading. Nobody is going to get exactly what they want. The school finance piece, though, is kind of the hammer, because that's going to be what, in the end, scares at least one or two factions to give up what they want, because they're going to want to get something in place before the 30th.
I would say that if there is evidence that the legislature is moving to a solution, they could almost certainly go to the court and ask for a month-long extension. I don't think the danger of the school shutting on June 30th it's a danger, but it's not an overwhelming one. But if they haven't figured it out by June 30th, closing schools is the least of their problems. It will suggest that after 8, 9, 10 weeks of work, plus the entire winter, they still can't crack the code of tax increases, spending cuts, school finance, and fully funding that formula to make a difference.
Now, lawmakers also trying to repeal a law that will go into effect on July 1, allowing concealed guns on college campuses. That law says all Kansas universities have to permit guns except in buildings where there are metal detectors or security at each entrance. Well, KU recently announcing they're spending $1 million to buy metal detectors and other security equipment to avoid guns from being taken into Allen Fieldhouse and at the KU football stadium. That means, though, you will have to go through metal detectors for the first time to go to games there, right, Stacey?
That's correct. And, you know, Nick, that's not uncommon in a lot of sports venues now where you have to go through added security. But it's the cost of the matter, putting it on these universities. And then you start to talk about public hospitals, particularly the mental health hospitals, where now the governor is going back to the legislature to ask for millions of dollars to put in metal detectors and security measures there. We go back to seeing this, that they didn't carve out an exemption for hospitals for a state that's running a huge budget hole right now, that they're going to have to fund these things, was just completely irresponsible. And there's no indication in this session whether or not conservative Republicans in Kansas are going to bow and allow a carve out for the hospitals, or if they're going to cave to the NRA and stay hard on this gun legislation.
Because there's been several efforts to try and change this law or repeal it. That hasn't happened thus far. Any proof that that would happen in this wrap-up session?
Well, they're going to take a really hard look at it, Nick, for some venues. But, you know, some places like the KU Medical Center, for example, so many entrances, more than 100, trying to put metal detectors at all of those things is simply cost prohibitive. That's the problem they're facing.
Let's continue the fun. In fact, it's time to put your party hat on, and for good measure, let's wheel in the cake and throw in some games. This Saturday is the first birthday party for the Kansas City Streetcar, and you can expect free cake in those games and all manner of entertainment Saturday from 11 to 2 for all the anxiety over how this would go down in Kansas City with average daily ridership of 5,800 and 2 million boardings over the last 12 months. Has the streetcar proved itself, Dave Helling?
Yeah, I think so, for, again, what it is expected to be, which is kind of an entertainment vehicle. It's not really a mass transit approach to moving people to and from work, although some people are using it as that. It won't really prove its full mettle until if and when it's extended to the rest of the city and it connects more neighborhoods and shopping districts, that type of thing. But for what it is, it's actually worked much better than people think. Now, quickly, it's free. If people had to pay to ride on it, I think the ridership would have been much lower, dramatically lower. But for what it is, I think it's great.
Steve?
I agree. I think it's been a huge success, and the tail of the tape will be if and when, as Dave says, it's expanded out to the plaza in UMKC. If it comes out to UMKC where I work, it'll change my life. It'll be
But is that plan in jeopardy, though? Because we do have a measure on the August ballot that will ask for a citywide vote on streetcar expansion. Currently, it's only those individuals who live close to the streetcar line, who are in a transportation district, who would actually vote for that.
Yeah.
But would that actually impair the opportunity to expand the streetcar line?
I think it really puts it at risk, because we've talked about it before on this program. When you had a mail-in ballot that allowed for this original startup line, it won overwhelmingly. But there was huge questions if it was to a citywide vote whether or not that would have passed, and that's going to be the same case here. Look, it's been an expensive advertisement for what public transportation could be in Kansas City, and it's been successful to that. But when you extend it out and start to ask other people to pay for something that's going to be free for riders, I think you've got a heavy load to lift.
And as Troy Schulte said, the city manager on our special on infrastructure last week, about it was not a question of charging people in an expanded route for a streetcar line. It would be now to have free rides even on the bus service across the metropolitan area. So everything is free. Less than a month after Benedictine College, just up the road in Atchison, announced it was ditching yoga mats and renaming its yoga classes because of complaints that yoga is grounded in Eastern mysticism at odds with Catholicism, the Archdiocese of Kansas City in Kansas is now ditching Girl Scout cookies and the Girl Scouts too. In a story making national news this week, Archbishop Joseph Naumann says the Girl Scouts are no longer a compatible partner in promoting the Catholic lifestyle. Among his concerns is what he says are the group's ties to Planned Parenthood. He's asked parishes in the diocese to instead charter American Heritage Girl troops, which he describes as based on Christian values. Isn't the Catholic Church, though, as a faith-based private organization, entitled to decide who they partner with and who they don't, Dave?
Yes, they are. Completely. Should be. They can make this, I say they, the church can certainly make this decision legally and even morally. Whether it's the right decision is another question, but they certainly have the right to make it and reach it, and parishioners and Girl Scouts and students and their parents can all respond accordingly.
Some people asking this week, though, why isn't the Boy Scouts also on this list? Why is it just the Girl Scouts, Stacey?
Well, you said it in the intro, Planned Parenthood, and the connections that Girl Scouts have to that.
Well, what connections do they have, though? That's unclear at best.
I would completely agree, but that's the connections that they made.
The church is alleged.
And look, Organized religion is dying in this country, and this is one reason right here. Dave's right, they have the right to make that stand, but when you do that, you start to ostracize certain people instead of having an education talking about what our morals are and what our convictions are. When you start to pin that on a group like the Girl Scouts, then, you know, people start to step back. So I think it was a poor move for the diocese.
It was clearly,
coming from a Catholic myself, I can't support what they've done here.
It was clearly a political statement by the Archdiocese. Yesterday, President Donald Trump signed an executive order that would loosen restrictions on churches becoming involved in politics. We're going to see more of this direct involvement by churches. We already see some of it, but this kind of political statement will be more common rather than less common in the weeks ahead.
You know, I think what confuses me about this order is why the focus on girls and Girl Scouts when the Boy Scouts had a controversial policy not long ago allowing transgender youth to take part in the Boy Scouts. So why the focus on girls when particularly this tie to Planned Parenthood has been rebuffed and rebuffed fairly effectively by the Girl Scouts in recent years? It begins to raise questions about girls versus boys and equality there. I'm not sure exactly where the Catholic Church is going here.
It was once the retail hub of Johnson County. Now Metcalf South Shopping Centre meets the wrecking ball this week. It is just the latest shopping mecca to bite the dust in our metro. The 50-year-old mall is being demolished to make way for a new Lowe's home improvement store. No wrecking ball, though, at the Schlitterbahn Water Park, where 9 months ago, after a boy is killed on the world's tallest water slide, the attraction, the Verrückt, is still very much intact, just as it was on that fateful summer's day in August. This week, the Kansas City Star reveals that the family of 10-year-old Caleb Schwab will receive nearly $20 million in settlement payments. 6 months ago, park officials announced they would tear down the ride. The water park in KCK is about to reopen for the season. Why is it still there, Stacey Cameron?
Well, there's no real answers. It was supposed to be taken down when all the investigations were complete. They seem to be complete. The settlements on the legal side are all there. I'm sure Schlitterbahn wants to get it done before the season opens because it's a PR nightmare and an eyesore, continuing to bring us back to that tragedy. But there are no real answers why it's still
What could be left, though, to investigate at this point, Dave, when the settlements have already been made?
It may be that they want to take a closer look at design or other maintenance issues. We don't know. And of course, once you take it down, that's it. You can't really put it back together. So I think they want to make sure they're completely finished with it. But you're right. It's a bit of a, more than a bit of an eyesore for the park. We should also mention that the Kansas legislature passed and the governor signed tougher regulations for amusement parks, the direct result of this tragedy. That's an accomplishment they can be proud of.
One of the biggest national stories this week, the House voting to repeal Obamacare. And every member of the Kansas and Missouri delegation with an R after their name voted yes on the new health care replacement bill. That includes the congressman from Kansas, Kevin Yoder. Yoder had been listed as one of just a small group of congressmen still undecided on the bill, just as a poll of his district is released showing a majority of voters opposing the GOP-backed plan. So why, after so much indecision, did the Kansas congressman push the yes button, Brian Lowry?
Well, I think there's a lot of reasons, but one thing I think we need to clearly state is Yoder really now owns this policy in a way that maybe he wouldn't have if he had made his mind up sooner. Lynn Jenkins isn't being looked at as a deciding factor in passing this bill. Kevin Yoder is, because he made such a point of how he hadn't made his decision. He was weighing a lot of things. Obviously, Yoder has long supported repealing the Affordable Care Act, and I think he was looking at the fact that even though a majority of voters in his district, according to that one poll, oppose repealing it, majority of Republican voters in his district, his party still probably support that. He's also looking at his long-term future in the party. Kevin Yoder is a guy who, if he's going to stay in Congress and doesn't run for governor, wants to move up within the leadership structure. And this is something that you can get penalized for. If you're not there when your party really needs you to pass something, you're going to get penalized for it. It seems to be a decision based maybe a bit more on politics than policy, but we'll let Yoder
Well, Dave
answer
Helling,
that.
you wrote a column this week about the political consequences of this vote on Kevin Yoder, but that was before the vote. So the fact that he votes yes, what are the consequences of that to him now?
He's still the favorite, in part because what he voted for is not law. And so people don't really see the impact in their lives yet unless some version of this becomes law. That's what happened to Democrats in 2010 when Obamacare actually passed and happened. People could sort of sense what was coming. But I do think, you remember, it's the 3rd district, Hillary Clinton won by about percentage point, a little bit more than that. So he's always a bit vulnerable, and I think people are really paying attention to this vote as an indication of where his philosophy is, and he may suffer for that.
Well, and I think, too, you got to look, this may be an eye towards running for governor, because while it won't affect him, I think, in his district, were he to run for governor across the rest of the state of Kansas, he didn't want to get hogtied with the idea that he didn't vote to repeal Obamacare. That way now he can, beef up his conservative credentials across the rest of the state of Kansas.
I think this bill's got a long way to go, Nick. The Senate's going to change it. We have months and months to go in deliberating this thing. This thing is far from being decided.
This, beyond the politics of this, that has implications that are specific to this neck of the woods than other parts of the country. Doesn't this bill specifically forbid states that haven't already expanded Medicaid to do so? That includes then Missouri and Kansas, and I know Kansas is still trying in this last wrap-up session to still pass Medicaid expansion.
Right, the changes to Medicaid in this bill are pretty significant, both because they block states like Kansas and Missouri from expanding, and a majority of Kansas lawmakers want to expand. They didn't have a veto-proof majority, and of course, Sam Brownback vetoed it, but there still is a lot of support for expanding Medicaid in the legislature. Also, shifting the way that you fund Medicaid to this per capita system is going to cost both Missouri and Kansas money. There's been a study by the Urban Institute calculates it at maybe $1 billion for Kansas over 10 years, $3 billion for Missouri over the same period. So this is actually going to really have an impact on state policy.
The Medicaid cuts are the most important part of the bill that the House passed.
Yeah, and watch, we talked about the the expansion of health care in Kansas on an earlier show, and while it didn't move forward in Kansas, I think this bill coming out of the House in D.C. may now jumpstart that again, the panic level going up in Kansas to see health care expansion before the summer's over.
This notion that this bill takes care of pre-existing conditions is something that I think citizens and voters should take a very close look at. Long checkered history in this country of these high-risk pools being inadequately funded.
Kansas had one, and
Kansas
I think it still has one, actually, and it didn't work well.
That's something to keep a really close eye on going forward.
And that is our Week in Review. Our thanks to our news reviewers from the Kansas City Star, Brian Lowry and Dave Helling. He keeps you up to date weekdays at 11 on KCUR-FM's Steve Kraske. And digging into the news, TV investigative reporter Stacey Cameron. I'm Nick Haynes from all of us here at KCPT. Thanks for spending part of your weekend with us.